Everybody. The chapter that I got to research was chapter 13, which dealt with faculty and research. And some of the things that I took from that chapter was that teachers are extremely important and integral to classroom research. Classroom research adds a lot of opportunities for academics and a lot of interpretation and understanding of what your students are understanding and some of the things that they might need to work on and that you might need to work on as a teacher. But before you go into conducting and having research in your classroom, you need to kind of weigh the pros and the cons, kind of going through the positives and the negatives of having research in your classroom and thinking about how it will affect your students and your teaching before you start it and before you agree to it. I have made and compiled a list of some of the do's and don'ts for having faculty involved with research. Researchers should always be aware and use the guidelines for ethical research. So that should always be kind of the foremost importance of making sure that you're doing things correctly when you're doing research. Research should never discriminate based upon race, ethnicity, sex, class, religion, etc. Never showing any bias towards anyone. And what I thought was extremely important is that research should always protect who the research is being done upon. So protecting the human subjects, the individuals, protect them always first. To continue my list of do's and don'ts, make sure you read and understand consent forms and make sure that your subjects and individuals understand those consent forms as well and that they know what they're agreeing to. And make sure that, if your consent form is in English, make sure that if your subjects are Spanish or Japanese, make sure that they are translated in whatever language they are best understanding of. Be sure that you give contribution and credit to others when you're doing research with them. Make sure you're not taking other people's ideas as your own. And don't ever use a superior status to pressure anyone or to be credited for that information or to be manipulative towards them. So for say that you're working with a college professor and you're the student, you've done all the research, yet the professor is saying that that is their own information. That's not okay. That's not ethical. Scenario 1 dealt with Mr. Withers. He is a college ESL teacher, and he was going to instruct a large group of Japanese students that were coming to the college that he taught at, and he would have them for 4 weeks based on the use of the LR distinction, which he had found was troublesome for Japanese learners who were going to be doing English. And he was going to conduct this research, and he had each student read an English passage out loud, and then he videotaped them and then had them state their name at the end of each video or at the end of each reading. Then he would repeat that same procedure at the end of the 4 weeks so that he could see kind of as it's serving a pre-test and a post-test or a pre-video, pre-instruction, or in post-instructional video to kind of see what they had gained through his work with them. And then after looking at that data, he wrote a paper and he was going to submit it for publication immediately. Now, what is wrong with that? So after I first read the scenario with Mr. Withers, I wasn't really sure what he exactly did that wasn't right with his research or that was incorrect. But as I began reading the rest of chapter 13, it became very clear what he had done. None of his students even knew that they were part of any research. So if they didn't know that they were part of that research, then he didn't have their consent. And then it goes even further that if he didn't have his consent, some of them might not have even wanted to participate in this research. So that wasn't even an option given to them. And he didn't protect their rights. So if he didn't protect their rights, then it wasn't ethical research. So lots of problems with Mr. Withers and the research that he conducted with these Japanese students. I hope that I have given you some insight into what Chapter 13 was about with faculty and research, and I hope you guys gain a little bit of knowledge and information from it too. Bye!